Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
And I've returned, and thank you guys so much for holding down the fort while I was gone. I really appreciate that so much.
We did it for you, Tyler.
Well, right. Although I will say, I think it's definitely, I think it flows better when you're here. So we're glad to have you back.
Oh, well, no, you guys did a great job. I did have one person in the comments at Camden Chat tell me that I can't miss any more episodes, but I don't know why that was, if it was because it was so much worse without me or they just missed me in general. I don't know. I think you guys did a great job, though. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Despite only listening to half the episode.
Honestly, it's kind of fair. I mean, quite frankly, we're used to talking 1/3 of the time. And right. When you then have to talk half the time, it's a totally different dynamic. And then I assumed the little host intro topic role that Tyler takes care of normally. And I'm not comfortable with that. So it's better this way.
I'm the point guard. I set you guys up to
exactly
score.
Right.
Right. It's an important skill set, but you know, if you had 80 episodes to work on it, Eli, I think you would have done a great job. But I think it was fantastic. It'll happen on occasion, and we just we roll with the punches, you know. But I'm back, and we didn't have an episode last week, and we're gonna talk some Orioles baseball. So let's just get into things because there's a lot.
We have a lot to.
Nope, Jesse's taking over. There's a delay today, people. Just beware. I'll try to edit around it, but you're gonna notice some delays. Jesse's Wi-Fi is not ideal, but we're gonna roll with it. Give him some space to really explain and jump in where he can. So, yes, as Jesse was saying, there's a lot to get to this week, and I think the biggest thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about yet is the John Means injury. We knew about the injury last time we recorded. We knew it didn't sound great, but we didn't exactly know it was going to lead to Tommy John. That is what has happened. He is out for the rest of this year, and it sounds like he's likely going to miss part of next year. They're not sure yet. Usually it's about a 1-year turnaround time for Tommy John. Some guys recover faster, some slower. But clearly, John Means is the best pitcher on this Orioles team, and losing him is going to hurt. Eli, I don't know, what's kind of your reaction to this, and what is the fallout from a John Means injury and how it ripples out across the entire organization?
Yeah, I guess, the first thing to say is that obviously everyone in Baltimore loves John Means, and this just hurts from a morale standpoint. We're cautiously optimistic about this year. We're anticipating seeing a bunch of the baby birds coming up, and there's a lot of excitement around the team, and this is just a damper on the whole thing. So beyond it just sucking, I think that, this definitely hurts the Orioles. Jess and I kind of had this discussion regarding trading John Means or keeping him, but it kind of worked out the same way because it's either he's here or he's not here. And now that he's not here, I think we have less certainty in a rotation that's very, very unstable still. We're calling up the Spencer Watkins and the Chris Ellises of the world for spot starts, although Ellis is on the IL now too. But folks are coming up for spot starts this early in the season. We're trying to figure out how we're going to start rotating these guys in. We finally got one start from Bradish, but I think further destabilizing that is going to put more and more load on the bullpen, just as we've seen in years past. And the stud bullpen that we've had, I'm more concerned about its effects on that, potentially having a shakier rotation day in, day out.
Jess, do you kind of want to share your thoughts on how it impacts the Orioles organization and maybe the plans of this season and even next?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, John Means was the biggest trade piece the Orioles had. Probably they would get the most return for John Means more than anybody else. And of course, having him go down for a serious injury changes the outlook on that. Plus it also just puts further doubt and further questions in the Orioles' mind whether they want to rely on John Means. I've never been a big on the idea of having John Means stay around for the Orioles winning, just from a purely strategic perspective. But for the people that were, and I'm sure the Orioles front office who had contemplated that idea, of course, this puts further questions and doubts in their minds about what his future is with the Orioles, and what the Orioles can rely on him for. In terms of the immediate future, I think the biggest thing that this does for the Orioles is, we had John Means as a stopper, and now we don't really have a stopper, right? So if the Orioles lose 7 games in a row, the Orioles can at least say, well, we have Means going tomorrow, so maybe we could climb out of this rut that we're in. And now we're going to be looking to Jordan Lyles to be doing that, or maybe Bradish, right? So it's not exactly the same thing. So from looking at it from this year's perspective, I'm a little more afraid that the lows could be even a little bit lower than they were before, that are going to happen this year, because we can't rely on, well, in 2 days we have Means, or 3 days we have Means, and we're going to find a way without an ace to emerge out of losing streaks and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, I think I talked prior to the season about how I kind of viewed the goal of this season was to kind of stabilize the pitching in some way, shape, or form. And that was going to come with, Means and Lyles being the veterans, and then you'd have the Braddishes and the Halls and the Rodriguezes eventually come up. And I think that still is going to be the goal. Like, they're going to bring those young guys up, but now, and they're going to bring them up at their own pace. I don't think this changes any of that. But now it's going to be kind of like you said, just sort of a little uglier for the time being, because they're not going to rush up Grayson Rodriguez. They're not going to rush DL Hall through basically what's a rehab plan at this point. Instead of getting interesting games from John Means, we're now going to have to struggle through games by Spencer Watkins, who his numbers so far are good. But
they have been good.
They've been good, but he doesn't strike anybody out. He actually walks a few too many people for his skill set. Like, it's not great, but the results have been good. So he also had like a good 6-start run last year, and then it imploded. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. But yeah, we're not going to rush those guys up. So now it's going to be Jordan Lyles, Kyle Bradish, who we're going to talk about in a second. And Bruce Zimmerman also has been fantastic, which I don't think we necessarily expected to be this good. So yeah, I don't think it makes a huge difference for the Orioles, because I think we talked about this too prior to the season. I didn't think John Means was going to get traded during the season anyway. So now maybe if he does get traded, that gets moved to next season. So it just is going to kind of make these next 2 to 3 months prior to like that real influence or injection of youth into the roster a little bit harder to watch. But, we're Orioles fans, so we're kind of used to that at this point. Yeah. Anything else to add on the John Means injury there?
It just sucks. We're hoping for the best for him, obviously. Just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, it's super frustrating because he's had injury issues the last couple of years, but nothing that indicated elbow issues, because it had been shoulder things until now. So this is just a real bummer, and he's a really talented pitcher, and this sucks, like you said.
Yeah, he actually said that right as he was coming out. He had said, like, I've never really felt anything there before. So seems like this was a surprise to all parties.
Yeah. But go ahead, Jess.
I was just thinking about we had all predicted Means to be the Orioles Cy Young winner, so yeah, I guess that's out the window. As I was kind of suggesting that might be a possibility at the time, but
you said because he was going to get traded, not because he was going to get hurt.
No. So, I said I brought up the possibility of him getting hurt. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Somebody can go check the tape. It's not going to be me.
But all right, yeah. So let's get positive with the pitching for a moment. We're going to talk Bradish in a second, but first, just kind of another sort of reminder that the Orioles bullpen might be legitimately really good, especially Jorge Lopez, who I think I've been on the Jorge Lopez to the bullpen train for a while. It finally happened last year. He got hurt. Now this year he is full on embracing the Orioles closer role, and it's just kind of awesome. Dylan Tate's been good. Some of the other guys have cooled off a little bit, but in general, the unit's been really solid. Except for like Paul Fry and Travis Lakins, who I don't know why he's still on the team, but
that is, I swear, like the most incredible thing about the Orioles this year is that Travis Lakins just keeps popping up. Like, Odor and Owings, we expected them to be around for a little while because, they're going to, give Bannon and Vavra and Nevin, all these guys a month in AAA. But Travis Lakins, there's just no real reason for him to be here right now. Nick Vespi's tearing it up in AAA. We've got plenty of the like quadruple A starters we've been talking about for years that could go fill his role. I really just do not. Travis Lakins, I do not understand why he's here. He just gets shelled every time.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys that like the pandemic season, he was pretty solid. Right there with like Paul Fry was really good in the pandemic season. And then last year was not good, and this year it's been pretty much a disaster. But anyway, the rest of the bullpen, though, guys, has been pretty good. I don't know what we want to talk about there. Do we buy it, Jesse? Do you buy what's going on with the bullpen, and do you see this as like a solution going forward, or is this just sort of it's good for now? Let's trade these guys when we can, and then let's again try to cobble together something next year.
I buy it for the short term. I definitely think the Orioles have a nice pen. And I think this bullpen would have the capability to be a good bullpen if the starting pitching didn't overexpose them, right, and didn't have short outings. And so I definitely think the pieces are there for the Orioles to have a good bullpen. But I think kind of like what we did with Sulser and like what we did with Scott, I feel like some of the pieces, if the bullpen does continue to pitch well, will kind of get dealt again based upon this newfound resurgence that we have in the bullpen. And so I can see that happening. And then we're going to kind of have to reconstruct it again a little bit. But overall, I definitely think. Who do I see getting dealt? I could see Lopez getting dealt. He's the main one that I'm thinking about. I think that they're hoping that he, I think we talked about this a bit the last time, but I think that they're hoping that he does a good job in the bullpen and can demonstrate that he's an effective closer in the hopes to increase his trade value. I could also see Dylan Tate getting dealt. I think that's also a possibility. But
I would throw Paul Fry in there too. If he can figure anything out, it's got to be Paul Fry. But
he's the other big one, of course, right?
I was discounting him because I don't think he'll be good enough.
Yeah.
That's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. So, but if we were a team like ready to compete and we had a good starting staff, I could start to believe in this bullpen, especially if Jorge Lopez did turn it into like a bona fide closer that we could rely on, right? He's been great. We're excited about that, as me and Eli talked about last time. I still want to see. I want to see him face some adversity before we start to fully buy into him being the closer. I want to see him blow a couple saves and see how well he rebounds and something like that. But especially if Lopez continues to be as effective as he is, I could definitely start to believe in this bullpen for a competing team. I think inevitably, though, the starting pitching just isn't going to do enough in order to give them what they need in order to be successful.
Okay, fair enough. Eli, you kind of had a visceral reaction there when Jesse was talking about trading. So you clearly have kind of a different read on the situation. I think we all can see like Paul Fry, if he is good enough, like a 4 ERA guy, he could probably go. But I guess there could be some discussion about the rest of the guys. So maybe explain your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Jorge Lopez has, just over 3 years of service time. So we've got him for this year and probably 2 more after that. Um, like I guess Dylan Tate is kind of in a similar situation. I just don't necessarily see a reason why we need to trade them if we are so close to contention. And so close is a relative term, but hopefully within the next couple of years we'll be moving towards that point. And I guess I just like have a slightly more positive look at the Orioles bullpen than Jesse does. Like right now, the Orioles bullpen is still leading the league in WAR of any team's bullpen, according to Fangraphs. I mean, I just think they've been phenomenal. Like, it might not be sustainable if the starting pitching takes the eventual steps back that we expect it to. Jordan Lyles went 6 innings of 1-run ball against the Red Sox today before the rain out. I don't necessarily expect that to continue, but for now, like the starting pitching really has done enough. And I think that this team, I mean, like Fangraphs themselves actually wrote an article about what the Orioles are doing quite so well. They're like referencing Lopez's sinker, of course, because it's 99 with some seam shifted wake. It's like, they're talking about how unique Felix Bautista's repertoire is, because it's so much vertical movement coming from such a high point, so hard. I think we've really, really got some weapons. We saw Dylan Tate's changeup on Pitching Ninja had like 27 inches of arm side run on a strikeout to Anthony Rizzo. I think this is the manifestation of what the Orioles have been investing in. And that is like being able to develop pitching from the standpoint of pitch design, from the standpoint of usage of their repertoires. One interesting note that Fangraphs article made is until 2 strikes, you'll see the Orioles catchers are actually setting up like right down the middle. And that's like a decision that's been made. And they say, you just throw your best stuff. You let that fastball take those extra couple inches of ride. You make the slider bite just that much more. And if you throw it anywhere near the zone, it's going to work. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is like kind of that is the best signal of the kind of change in philosophy that the Orioles have. And we are just aggressively chasing the stuff. And I think that right now our bullpen stuff is on par with anyone in the league at this point. And partially because of quantity, because we don't have long starts every time, the bullpen's getting more work, and that's probably helped them accrue more WAR. But the results are speaking for themselves. And at this point, when we are at the point of bringing up prospects like Bradish, the eventual Rodriguez, the eventual Adley, the eventual DL Hall, I don't see a reason to blow up the bullpen. So I do not see a piece like Jorge Lopez going this year.
I want to just say, I feel like I had a very positive outlook on the Orioles bullpen. I feel like you kind of mischaracterized how I felt about the bullpen. I'm excited by the bullpen. So there's that. And then also the other thing I was going to say is, just in terms of like when you think about like relievers, I don't know if you hold on to a really valuable reliever for 2 years, hoping to compete the third year and having the reliever there available the third year. So that's why I think that dealing the relievers makes some sense. And then you just find a way to replace those arms when you're actually competing, and you maximize the value of so that's why I bring up the trade possibility for some of these guys.
Yeah, and I think I'll piggyback off you there, Jesse, because I think that's something we still need to learn about Mike Elias, is how he regards pitching talent, and how much is like the person and how much is the process that Elias and his crew put into place, because he has not prioritized pitching talent in the draft at all. And that is by this point clearly a decision. That's a conscious
intentional.
Yeah, it's intentional to not get pitching early in the draft. He thinks he can trade for other teams' failed projects, like a Kyle Bradish. He got him as part of he got like 3 or 4 players from the Angels for Dylan Bundy. I mean, like, used to be an uber prospect, but Dylan Bundy at this point in his career, although he's pretty good with the Twins right now, is like an average major league pitcher. And he's turned Bradish into now a major league caliber starting pitcher. Like that's what he is right now. And, so you look at the bullpen and how that they've acquired these players. Jorge Lopez waiver claim. Dylan Tate was the trade with the Yankees. Joey Kreibel was a waiver claim. Cionel Perez was a waiver claim. Felix Bautista was a minor league free agent. Paul Fry was a trade with the Mariners. Brian Baker was a waiver claim. Travis Lakin's, we're not going to talk about him. And Keegan Aiken. And Keegan Aiken was a second round pick of the Orioles, but is a failed starter, basically. So none of those guys are like these players that every team had to have. They are guys that had some nugget that Mike Elias or even Dan Duquette in some cases saw something in and has ratcheted things up to 10 to make it work at the big league level. And I wonder if Mike Elias doesn't view this as, let's get Jorge Lopez saves, let's make him a valuable trade piece, trade him, and then we'll turn the next guy into Jorge Lopez too. I don't know. I'm not advocating for that. I really like what Jorge Lopez is doing right now. And I think you just kind of see how things change throughout the summer. But I pretty much always think it's a good idea to take a productive reliever when you're a bad team and turn it into interesting prospects, because relievers are so volatile. They are
right.
Paul Fry is a good example. Was good a couple years ago, now is awful all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden, but over the last year. That if you can get something for them, do it. Because there's just so few like Aroldis Chapmans out there that are good for a decade, that you gotta get the value when you can get the value. So yeah, I think I'm on Jesse's side there.
Right. I also want to say that I'm also not as pessimistic that Paul Fry can't turn it around. He's been horrendous, but he's been horrendous in the past and has found a way to turn it around. So I'm not in the short term, I'm not giving up on Fry to, retrieve his value for the deadline yet. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Kyle Bradish, because I think that's another big news story this week. I'll admit I didn't get to watch a lot of his start, so I can't have too many opinions here. I assume you guys maybe caught a little bit more of it. Eli, I'll go to you probably first for your thoughts and reactions to what Bradish did in his debut, that makes you kind of excited or worried going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to echo a lot of like what the scouting report is on him, but he's got a bunch of pitches that are all pretty distinct but equally effective. He's got the fastball that can get up into the mid 90s, and he's got the two distinct breaking balls. I think that's really the thing to cue in on, is he's got the like steeper, slower curve, and he's got the sharper, more horizontal slider. And he got, I think, both of his strikeouts. He only had 2 Ks, but both of the strikeouts were on the slider, if I'm remembering right. It looked sharp. And I think like the thing to really take away from this is that he gave up 3 runs in the second inning. It looked ugly at first, and he immediately regrouped and managed to stay out there for 4 more clean innings. Like that's all you can really ask from a young guy. He had said, I'm nervous for every start, but this was definitely next level, the first major league start, and he goes out there and throws up a quality start. It's literally all you can ask for. And I think there's just a lot to like looking at his repertoire. All the scouting reports held true here, and he'll definitely be able to rack up some Ks as he moves forward.
Yeah, no, it was definitely like, it's a good feeling to have a guy come up and not fall apart and have a pretty solid game against a Red Sox lineup that is depleted, but still has some big names in it. Jess, what's your reaction to Bradish getting the call and making his big league debut?
Yeah, so I caught the end of it. The other thing, to Eli's point about him not unraveling, right, was he was also part of the 3 runs was a gift from Trey Mancini's air out in the outfield. So
Definitely.
I mean that was also part of it, that he was able to not let that turn into a really bad downward spiral. So no, I mean, it was very impressive. on the night, he did end up with 2 Ks, which we don't expect him to be a giant strikeout pitcher in the majors. But the fact that he was able to pitch as effectively as he did with only 2 strikeouts, and pitching, to weak contact and stuff like that. I mean, definitely very impressive. And yeah, I mean, the Red Sox are kind of scuffling right now. Their record's not very good. The offense, as you can see in the series against us, has not been great. But like you said, Tyler, I mean, they got Devers, they got Bogarts, and I mean, those are 2 scary names right there. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is like the Bradish promotion and debut is the start of, we're going to see kind of a turn in the rotation, I think, over the next couple of months, which is huge. We're going to see Grayson Rodriguez up here. We're going to see DL Hall get a chance in the rotation. And this is like, this is what we've been waiting for 4 years is arriving as we talk. Like the young guys are coming. Maybe it doesn't all work out, but this is what the anticipation has been all about. I'm interested to see how they manage innings. Bradish has thrown 21 innings already this year between Norfolk and Baltimore. He threw 101 innings last year. Are they going to let him go to 120, 130? Like, we've still got 5 months left in the season. Right now, it looks like he'll pitch every 5th day. Maybe they stretch him out. They skip him one time every here and there, so he gets through September. But, that's something I always, not that he's that young. He's 25. He'll be 26 in September. But this is his first time in the big leagues. You got to wonder how they're going to manage that. And that could get interesting. And we might still see, like, down the road, an Alex Wells, a Dean Kramer spot start here and there, to keep the guys that are becoming like, the pitchers we maybe care about a little bit more, healthy through the end of the season. But yeah, I just think the fact that he made the start, he's now a big leaguer. You can't take that away from him. Let's see what he can do. Give him an honest to goodness chance to really show his stuff. So yeah, I think it's nothing but positive. All right. Anything else on Bradish before we move on to the position players? No.
Keep it moving.
All right. Let's talk defense. The Orioles defense has had some struggles this year. This past week in a game against the Yankees, they made 5 errors. They've got 21 errors on the season, which we know errors are not the end all be all of defense for sure. But I think there's definitely been some things that haven't been quite as good this year as we would have anticipated. Kelvin Gutierrez has struggled a little bit at third base. There's been some weird stuff with Rougned Odor at second base on occasion. Trey Mancini is playing the outfield sometimes, which is never a good option. I think Cedric Mullins is grading out a little bit worse than he did last year, although I think he's still good. But Jesse, are you worried at all about what you're seeing from the Orioles defense, or is this potentially just sort of a small sample size at work?
I think predominantly it's a small sample size. What I will say is I don't think, especially with Mateo at shortstop, I don't think he's the most sure-handed infielder that there is, right? He's definitely not a JJ Hardy. But I think also the point that you were making in particular applies to Mateo, that errors are not the end all be all. Because Mateo is going to end up getting to a lot of balls, right, that other shortstops would not get to. And so in a sense, that's going to compensate for the errors that he makes, right? He's going to give a few hits, errors, quote unquote, that turn into basically hits, but he's also going to take some away with his range. But yeah, I mean, I think it's evident that, this is not the most sure-handed infield. Mateo, kind of being the centerpiece of that, but also Odor, Chris Owings dropped the ball yesterday that could have easily been an error, but he managed to get the out, right? So, I mean, I think it'll get a little better. I mean, I definitely think, right, it is the beginning of the season. So I think there is, I mean, we'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised if, they're just kind of getting back into it, and there is a little bit of an adjustment period at the beginning of the season. Yeah, and as far as Gutierrez, I mean, he's the one that I would say defensively I'm least worried about, just because he did, like last year, he was so impressive. and I'm the least worried about him defensively, even though offensively I am very worried about him. But yeah, so that's what I would say as far as the infield. I think that yeah, I mean, I'm definitely I think it might take a step back from where it was last year. But I think it will be better than what we've seen so far. So
yeah, I mean, we'll see if Gutierrez gets the chance to improve defensively.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And then as far as, of course, I mean, Hayes, Mullins, I'm not worried about them in the outfield. Santander has actually looked better to me in the outfield. I think his performance has improved, but like you said, right, if Trey Mancini has to play outfield, like you said, I mean, it's never a good option. So, I mean, worst case scenario, Mancini should be playing first base, but preferably DHing, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely not the Orioles of like 2014 or whatever it was when they had like 4 Gold Glove winners on the team. But Eli,
we set the record for like the least number of errors, but then didn't make the playoffs, right?
Yeah, that must have been 2013 or 2015 then, because 2014 they won the AL East.
Did, yeah, right.
Eli, do you have any different reading on the defensive situation right now?
Yeah, it's pretty similar overall. One thing I will say is I'm really not worried about the outfield at all, as long as we keep Trey Mancini out of it. I think that the infield, there is something that I look at and I see could potentially be kind of in the background contributing to this. So we had one of the worst, actually, scratch that. We had the worst ground ball percentage as a pitching staff last year. We were giving inducing ground balls at a 39.7% clip. This year, we're doing very, very well with that, and we're up over 46%. I think that, quite frankly, there's a higher volume of ground balls, and it's exposing some of the flaws that our defense had last year, but potentially was just hidden by the fact that, they weren't fielding as many ground balls. And obviously, that does not explain the jump to 1 error per game. That, that's a background thing and can contribute like 2 or 3 of these errors. But I think it's a combination of that. I think that the pitching staff has been more effective and is making our infield work harder and harder. That combined with, I don't think that Rougned Odor is a very good fielder. I think that, like we've talked about with Mateo, he's not the most sure-handed. The Orioles clearly think that they can teach that to him, and the athleticism will carry him through in the meantime. And we've seen Gutierrez failing a little bit when we expected him to be really good. So partially short sample size, partially some of these guys might not be that great at fielding, and partially they're also getting a heavier workload as a result of the pitching staff performing better.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, there's nothing else really for me to say. That the outfield, I think, has talented players on it, and the infield, I think, lacks a bit of talent, at least defensively. That's about where we're at.
Yeah.
And are you both happy with Santander in right?
I think
I'm fine with it.
I think he's fine. I definitely don't think he is a Gold Glove contender, even though he was a finalist for it a couple years ago. I don't think he looks like a Gold Glove type of outfielder, but I think he's fine. So yeah.
And if he hits, you find space for him in right field. That's just fine. We'll sacrifice a little bit, and he's been hitting the ball well. He's been drawing walks, so leave him there.
Yeah, and I think he's quickly becoming the trade chip of the team. If I had to pick a guy, which it's May, so we're not going to talk about that right now. But June, July, we'll start talking about it
for sure.
But okay, well, it's kind of we hinted at this just a second ago, but the rosters do reduce here. We're recording this on Sunday the 1st. It will get posted on the 2nd, Monday the 2nd. So maybe this has happened already, but we're talking about it ahead of time. The rosters reduced from 28 to 26. Brandon Hyde was quoted on Friday, I believe. No, Saturday, saying that he thinks the team is going to stick with the number of pitchers they currently have, which is 14. So that would be reducing the number of hitters down to 12, which would be taking 2 hitters away. That could change. He also said they maybe could go to 13 if the pitching was really good the next couple of days, which the starting pitching has been pretty good the last couple of days, although he had a quick hook with Watkins on Saturday. But all of that is to say 2 guys have to go between, as we're recording this, and the start of the game, the Orioles' next game. Eli, who do you think those 2 guys are going to be?
Yeah, we chatted about this a little bit beforehand, and so I'm going to steal Tyler's thunder. So I had come out and I had said that Owings, and I thought that Tyler Nevin would go down. I thought that Tyler Nevin would go down just because I'm really pessimistic. And I think that the Orioles would take something away that we were all excited about and stick with what was established already. Tyler countered with he had thought that Gutierrez would go down, and I don't know. I'm kind of leaning that way now. So, yeah, I think it'll be Owings and Gutierrez. I think that Rougned Odor sticks around a little while longer until Jahmai Jones, Rylan Bannon, et cetera, start forcing their way up. And yeah, Gutierrez has just been terrible. He hasn't been the reliable glove that we expected him to be. Chris Owings has been
bad.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about him. So it totally makes sense that those 2 step down. Nevin starts filling in more at third base, sharing time with Odor, Urias, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the pitching staff stays intact.
Yeah, and just like kind of explain my thought process there too is that, well, first of all, Owings has struck out 57% of his plate appearances, which is insane. But there's that. He doesn't really do anything that nobody else on the roster can do. Like, he plays second base. Odor does that. Urias does that. He plays third base. Nevin can do that. Urias can do that. So I would just be kind of done there. And then Gutierrez, I think we've just kind of seen what he is. He's not played good defense this year, but he can play good defense. He just does not hit enough really for any position, but especially not a corner infield position. So he's got to go. Now, both of them, neither one of them has options. So potentially they'll be out of the organization if they do get rid of them. But that doesn't make me lose much sleep at night. So Jesse, you want to go?
I actually think it will be. I think Owings is a bet. Like, I don't think there's any doubt about Owings, right? I think the only question is who the second guy is. And I actually think it will be Nevin rather than Gutierrez. I think the Orioles like Gutierrez a lot. I think they don't want to lose him in the organization. He's kind of like one of these he's like DJ Stewart, right? The Orioles hung on to him and tried to make him work. So I think that Gutierrez, especially defensively, has shown that I think that he's shown the Orioles enough to like get the chance. I don't think they're going to let him go after a bad month, especially when they invested so much time and innings in him, putting him in last year. So I think they're going to try to work on him. And I think it will be Nevin just because of the options, like you say. So I wouldn't be too mad if it was Gutierrez. I also think they have some hope for him to find the power in his bat, right? And I think that's how they can justify making it work with Gutierrez at third. So I don't see him being the one to go.
They're going to find Kelvin Gutierrez's power in his bat.
I think that's what they're like hoping for.
Wow.
I think they're
I just don't think. Yeah. I don't think he has any. There's no indication in his entire professional career, even as a minor leaguer, that he has any power.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, what I'll say though is you compared him to DJ Stewart, and like I know DJ Stewart is like the favorite punching bag of Orioles Twitter, and I totally get that. DJ Stewart's like a league average major league hitter. Like the guy can hit the baseball. It's not that he's great, but he's fine. And he has streaks where he hits 4 home runs in a week. He just can't play defense. And if you can't play defense, you need to be a really good hitter. And DJ Stewart just isn't. Kelvin Gutierrez is an awful hitter and occasionally plays good defense. Like, I don't know. He's
I think Jess was only making the DJ Stewart comparison just to say that he's like a favorite to the team for whatever reason.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Which clearly seems to be the case because he is still around. You know, last year there weren't too many overwhelming indications that he was going to be, you know, some bona fide major leaguer in 6 months. So,
right.
Yeah, they clearly favor him. He's still in the roster at this point. So,
yeah, he's kind of like, he's like sort of got the Renato Nunez thing or Hanser Alberto where, both those guys are better than him too, but like you got him during a season, he played part of the season, then you carry him over to the next year to see if he can kind of revamp things. For both of those players, that kind of worked out. Renato Nunez hit like 30 home runs. Hanser Alberto was like a solid everyday player. Gutierrez just isn't happening for. But yeah, I totally hear the logic of Nevin has options, Gutierrez doesn't. But right. I think we're kind of past that point. If Gutierrez was 23 years old, I'm all about it. But he's 27 going on 28. Like, he is what he is in my mind. This is his third organization. So yeah, but I hear where you're coming from totally.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, like with the power comment, like I don't think that he's a 30 home run guy, not even close, right?
Right.
I don't even think he's a 20 home run guy, right? But yeah, I do think they feel like there's probably more that can be tapped into with his power. So yeah.
Yeah. He did hit.
That's the only way you could justify him really playing third. A third baseman cannot hit 6 home runs in a year. Like,
well, you justify it until there's somebody forcing him off the position, which Tyler Nevin isn't exactly doing that because he's playing first base and third base, but
right.
I don't know. I think you just got to, at this point, learn what Tyler Nevin is too, because then you've got Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, all those guys coming. And I think this is the year, and maybe early next year, you learn what Tyler Nevin can do. So we'll see. All right, let's talk offense because that's been pretty awful too. The Orioles are averaging 2.95 runs per game. It continues to kind of be a struggle all across baseball. Honestly, offense is down. Players are talking about how the baseball is different again this year. Pitchers are complaining they can't really grip the ball very well. Batters are complaining they can't hit the ball very well. So it's just an entire cluster. But yeah, the Orioles offense is kind of that was the aspect of the team I was kind of excited about for this year because I thought they'd be at least like a league average kind of group, and they just aren't. They're really struggling. Jesse, maybe do I want to go to you first about anything in particular that's really sticking out to you about why the Orioles are struggling and maybe some things that they could do to improve the squad with? Maybe that's player utilization or something like that.
Yeah. I think overall, we have Odor hitting fifth today, which, is never really ideal. I think a lot of it has to do with Mullins setting the table, right? Mullins has just been bad, basically. He has a few dingers so far this year, but and he actually had a crucial double in the game last night. But other than that, like, he's been bad. He's hitting like right around the 200 mark, and I think that is a lot of it. As far as of course, it's not just him, right? The entire lineup is not doing well. Again, some of this I'm sure will even out and will improve as the season gets going. And but yeah, it's at a point where it's like, very frustrating. And the Orioles, if they could score even 4 runs in a game, it feels like a giant sigh of relief, right? So yeah, and as far as player utilization, I think Hyde, right, is still trying to, sort out the infield. I think people are still trying to clarify roles and clarify positions on the team. And the lineup, other than the top half of the lineup, has been more or less stable. But after the 5-hitter, for the most part, it's, 5 and below, it's been rotating a lot, right? And I think that kind of instability also makes it difficult for hitters. And a lot of hitters are not getting a lot of the consistency that they would need, right, in order to really be effective, right? We have Odor, Gutierrez, Nevin. I mean, Nevin's, more recent, but these people are not playing every day, right? They can't say, okay, I'm going to be in the lineup today. I can, I'm playing second base this week and I'm hitting 7th in the lineup or whatever, right?
Right.
And because the there's been some instability with that. I think that has effects for the lineup and for roles and expectations and stuff like that. So I think some of it is just kind of early season sorting itself out a little bit. And I think it will get better, but yeah, I mean, it's been shockingly bad, right? And that's kind of where the concern is, because it's been so bad, especially from a lot of the key guys we expect to be doing better. So
yeah, absolutely. Not what we anticipated. I think coming into the season, there'd be some exciting things to have talking about the offense, and it just hasn't really worked out that way. Eli, do you have any different thoughts from what Jesse's thinking about, how this crew can really turn around? I mean, I have thoughts about an influx of young talent improving the group, but I'm not so sure I'm holding out hope for this current group of veteran guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should say I have no different thoughts. The team is just bad right now. I just wanted to characterize it in a new way. By weighted runs created plus, they're 18% worse than league average. And we're second last in the league in home runs. We've only hit 10 home runs the entire season. The team's just performing bad. Like, you could cue in on Cedric Mullins and you could say, he's not quite setting the table well, but Ryan Mountcastle's not hitting well. Trey Mancini's not hitting well. There's literally nobody in the lineup besides Austin Hayes and Anthony Santander who are performing even adequately. Like I just said, the entire team as a unit is 18% worse than league average. That's like other teams have an entire extra person's worth, injected into their lineup relative to us. So we definitely, I don't know. It's just a dismal situation. Tyler alluded to bringing up young guys and infusing something that way. I don't, I think that's the only way that you can kind of shake up the situation in order to spark something within people. I don't have a total lack of faith in Mullins, Mountcastle, Mancini, etc. But I think at a certain point, these guys just need to perform better. I do think we need to get Chris Owings out of there. We need to get Odor out of the lineup. We need to get Gutierrez out of the lineup. There's absolutely no reason for them to be hitting on a major league team, quite frankly. But, I don't think there's anything to be said besides this team just needs to perform better. And yeah, maybe you could shake something up by getting some young, exciting names in there who might just have a different energy in the clubhouse, who might have a different approach down in the cages, who might just have some fun. And, they go out, they hit a double, and it just lightens the mood for everybody. I'm not quite sure what it is, but the team is just bad. And we know that they're capable of more, particularly those big names at the front of the lineup. And it's a huge, huge letdown after last year when we really did show some promise through the first top 4 or 5 in our lineup.
Yeah, I think something that people have talked about a lot with the Orioles so far is that the offense has been bad, but it's also been a bit unlucky because they are hitting the ball hard. Trey Mancini, I was looking at his baseball savant. His batting average is 224. His expected batting average is 322. And that's based on how hard you're hitting it, your launch angle, all that kind of stuff. Ryan Mountcastle, he's batting 241. His expected batting average is 333. So again, that's another huge person in your lineup that is his batted ball data would show you that he's doing a nice job, but he's been unlucky. And that's two tough players to having that happen at the exact same time. Cedric Mullins has been about what his data says he should be. So, I think that at a certain point that turns around and those balls start to fall in because, like Jesse was laying out, like that final second half of the lineup is bad. And I don't think that's going to change until Rutschman replaces Chirinos and eventually somebody replaces Odor and Owings. But Mountcastle and Mancini are good major league hitters. They have enough of a track record, Mancini in particular, to tell you that they are good major league hitters. They're not going to continue to be as awful as they have been. So I think it's the small sample size stuff at work here a little bit. We just need to give it another couple weeks and then maybe judge what's going on. Because I think if you get Mountcastle, Mancini to improve, I think Hayes is going to be good this year. He's been talked about as a guy that's expected to break out this year, and that's happening right now as we watch it. Santander's been good. Then you've got 4 or 5 guys that are obvious average to above average major league players. The offense gets going a little bit, and I think this team is going to improve because right now they're on pace for like 54 wins, which would be an improvement on last year. Still not good. And I think this is a year a lot of us were hoping they'd get into that 60-win, 65-win territory. So I'm holding out hope for just some of those unlucky balls to fall in and the Orioles start scoring 3 and 4 and 5 runs a game rather than 1 and 2.
Well, what's frustrating is if the offense had just been competent, we could be like a 500 team right now with how our pitching has been, right? So it's just, it feels like if it's not one thing, it's the other,
Yeah. So Tyler, real quick, one counterpoint to the unlucky portion,
Mm-hmm.
A good indicator of that is your batting average on balls in play.
Mm-hmm.
And ours is like perfectly league average. We're sitting at 15th out of 30.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't get me wrong, I definitely agree with Trey and Mountcastle in particularly having torn into some baseballs that have not fallen. And that might be true for those two individually, but I think as a unit, I guess it's kind of an interesting thing because those two in particular, I do think they have been a bit unlucky, and the numbers that you called out do allude to that. And if those two start hitting better, that probably unlocks a huge portion of our offensive production. But at the same time, as a unit, our batting average on balls in play has been right in line with league average.
Right. And that paired with what you said about no home runs is the issue because home runs aren't a ball in play. They are out of play. So if you league average balls and batting average on balls in play and then hit home runs, you'll probably be fine. But if you just average and then don't hit home runs, you're going to be below average. So totally. And that gets into talking about Camden Yards, and people have been talking about how now all of a sudden it's a cavern and nobody can hit a home run anywhere. There's some truth to that. There's going to be fewer home runs hit that this year, but right field hasn't changed, and we don't have a lot of left-handed hitters, but you'd like to see a few more home runs go off onto Utah Street in the flag court. Jess, you want to jump in
quickly? Yeah. Can I just ask quickly?
You can.
We didn't talk about this at any point, and I feel like it was somewhat negligent on our part not to bring it up. But how are you guys liking the new wall so far?
I mean, from an aesthetic perspective, I think it looks fine. Some people have been talking about how it's ruined the look of Camden Yards. I think it looks fine. From a play perspective, there have definitely been balls that it has had an impact on. And even more than just home runs, I think we see a lot more like bloop singles fall into left field now, which is kind of
playing deeper.
Yeah, which is kind of a new element. And I don't hate it. I think the Orioles are going to start to tailor the roster to it. I think we're going to like it once our team has a switch hitting Adley Rutschman hitting from the left side most of the time, Gunnar Henderson from the left side, and we're going to get some of those home runs while a right-handed Yankees or Red Sox lineup hits that wall a couple times. So I think it's fine. I'm going to reserve judgment until the whole season is done, but so far I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. The big thing to me, I think that it is a huge like bonus to the pitching staff, and our pitching staffs have been so consistently bad. Even when we had those playoff teams, like Chris Tillman's your ace, and we have never had a truly elite pitching staff in Baltimore in a long, long time. Not never, I shouldn't say. Never in my lifetime, though, since 95. And so I think it's really good for that. I think Elias had alluded to attracting that top tier talent, that if we want to be a contending team, we're going to have to go and we're going to have to sign some big ticket free agent. I think if you want to attract those people, somebody on a Cooperstown path, that you need to tell them, yeah, you're not going to give up 340-foot cheap home runs. And so, yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think that, Mountcastle still has the power to get it over there. He already did, just the other day. And if people get into a ball, it's going to go. It's just not going to allow those cheap ones that it always has.
Right. And your point about signing free agent pitchers, I would say, like, yeah, that's part of Elias's plan here too, is we talked about this last year, I think, because Dan Connolly wrote a thing about how there's not enough pitching talent in the minor leagues, but like, that's the whole plan. The Orioles are going to grow the bats and eventually buy an arm or two or trade for an arm or two. And if you want guys to stick around, you need to be able to tell them your ERA is going to still be like shiny and nice and get you on a path to getting another big deal or go to Cooperstown or whatever it is. So, it's not like Mike Elias alone made the decision to move the wall, but it was part of his plan here. And I'm fine with it. That may change if the roster construction changes, but the Orioles needed to get into that game too. Like the Yankees have that joke of a right field in their stadium. That was on purpose. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now because their lineup is so right-handed, but a lot of teams do that. They build and cater their stadium to what they build how they build their roster. And the Orioles should do that. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And it does amplify like the meaning of a home field advantage, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The thing that I look at is, like, with the Yankees, Joey Gallo would not have been nearly as attractive of a target if they did not have that tiny, tiny right field porch. Somebody who can hit. Well, yeah, they were looking at Olsen.
I mean, they didn't get him.
Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But Rizzo's hitting a ton of home runs. And I mean, he just hit 3 in the one game and 2 of them were jokes.
Us. Okay. Yeah. So I just have to call out one of those home runs. One of those home runs had an expected batting average of 0.010, I think. It's expected that 10% of the time it's a hit, period. Mm-hmm. And then it was a unicorn in the sense that it at that stadium is the only stadium that it would have been a home run.
I thought they said 2 of them would have been only at Yankee Stadium, but one was hit a little better.
Yeah, I think one of them had 2 stadiums. Okay. If I remember right. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
I was digging into this because I was looking at it and I'm like, this is so, I don't know. I don't want to swear on the podcast. We're family friendly, but I was internally doing some bad things.
Right. So the Orioles are just doing the reverse and they're catering it to pitching having the advantage, which I think is fine, but we need more data before anybody flips out about it. So let's just chill. All right. We've got one last thing here on the outline about the Orioles and Nationals and the Masson debacle. Eli, you put this on here, I believe. Do you want to kind of explain what's going on with the O's and the Nationals?
There's really not too much to say. So basically the way it's set up is that the Orioles have the majority stake in Masson and the Orioles are the controlling interest in Masson. So they make the decisions on what Masson does. So every single year, the Orioles are supposed to pay out a certain amount, and that amount is a percentage of the rights of those broadcasting rights, and the revenue taken from it, and it's a means of profit sharing. So the Orioles in 2018 apparently decided to stop making these payments to the Nationals, and so it was interesting to me because I looked at it and I said, wow, people have been making fun of the Nationals for offering Bryce Harper these big contracts, but with huge, huge deferments, and saying, we'll give you the last $45 million over the next 50 years. They offered that to Bryce. They offered that to Max Scherzer. They offered it, and it got accepted by Steven Strasburg. All of those big contracts have deferments.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that I look at is like, wow, in 2018, they just stopped receiving maybe $50 million a year, which is absolutely insane. Obviously, like, people listening to this podcast know that we're not on the side of the owners being short of cash and like struggling to field these teams. That's not where I'm coming from, but a $50 million chunk of revenue being taken out is pretty substantial. So apparently the Orioles, their defense for it has been saying that since there's so much uncertainty, I guess I should backtrack a little bit. The Orioles from 2012 to 2016 were paying the Nationals a certain amount. That amount was then reviewed by an independent board put together by Major League Baseball. And that independent board said that the Orioles owed an extra $100 million plus to the Nationals. And so the Orioles have been challenging that in the legal system. And it's now like at the New York State Court of Appeals. I don't fully understand why it's in New York, because it's DC and Maryland, but whatever. Mm-hmm. So the New York State Court of Appeals has been looking at this. And so there's been $100 million of Orioles / Masson money sitting in escrow waiting to be paid out to the Nationals. And so the Orioles are saying that in case that amount needs to go up or go down or whatever, they want to protect the asset, quote unquote, protect themselves. And so they just stopped paying any money out while all these legal proceedings go. It's a very, very weird situation, and the Orioles are definitely playing it a little bit shady.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, and I definitely don't think we're definitely not like the experts on this. I think we got to keep an eye on what people in The Athletic report on, and ESPN. Maybe Jeff Passan will get into this, because Brittany Giroli will probably be a good one to pay attention to on The Athletic, because she's a former Orioles reporter, former Nationals reporter, and is now a national baseball reporter for The Athletic. But yeah, I mean, look, the Orioles have been kind of a thorn in the side of Major League Baseball for a while now. They didn't want the Nationals in DC. They're in DC. They're supposed to have a 75% stake in Masson. I think MLB has been trying to whittle that down to make it more even for the two of them. And on top of that, regional sports networks have been getting weird in recent years, and MLB is chopping up what games can be shown where in recent years, where Peacock's got games, Apple TV's got games. There's some games on ESPN, Fox, and it's just going to continue to go that way. So I wonder even how viable Masson is long-term anyway. Not to mention it's like programming outside of Orioles and Nationals games is abysmal. So I don't know. This is all weird. It's something to always keep an eye on. It feels like it's going to go on for forever. So I can't say that I've really got a conclusion here, but certainly interesting that the Orioles are playing hardball here. But yeah, as more things come, we'll note it. But yeah, I can't say we're experts on the topic.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just one thing to keep an eye on. There has been talk of the Orioles being sold. The Angeloses have committed to staying in Baltimore, and we've heard that new renovations are coming to Camden Yards, all that stuff. But the team itself could still be sold. And so I do think that this is kind of an interesting footnote to that whole story, because I'm not sure who would want to buy a team that is embroiled in legal conflict and potentially owes, a couple $100 million to another team. It's interesting.
Yeah, well, and the Nationals are potentially up for sale right now too. That's talked
right
about. And the Orioles did just secure like $1.2 billion from the state of Maryland, which we're not in favor of that at this pod. I mean, it's cool because Camden Yards will be beautiful, and it's part of the Camden Yards Sports Complex, which includes the Ravens Stadium as well. So it'll be beautiful and all that, I'm sure. But there's a lot better things you could use $1.2 billion for. But it also, what it does do, from a baseball fan perspective, is it does pretty much secure the Orioles are going to be here for a long time. The state of Maryland's not going to give them $1.2 billion and then see the team walk out the door a couple years later. So, yeah, it's interesting, man. This big business of baseball is makes your head spin sometimes.
It does.
All right, well, that's all the Oriole news we've got this week. I'm sure something amazing will happen in the next 7 days, and we will bring it to you on the podcast. Who the Orioles got this week? They're finishing up with the Red Sox today. They're in a rain delay as we record, but it looks, and it's unclear what's happening there, but they're up 3-1 or 4-1 as we record. They welcome in the Twins for a 4-game set, and then they welcome in the Royals for 3 games. So we get to see Bobby Witt Jr., the guy that the Orioles might have picked over Adley a couple years ago, but it didn't happen.
Although he did usurp Adley on the preseason prospect rankings from MLB Pipeline.
He did. So. And this is a lot of people got upset about that. But
yeah. People have been talking
and
about
Carlos Correa.
Oh, with the Twins. Yeah, okay.
Yep. That's true.
For the Twins, yeah.
Future Baltimore Oriole.
That's
Shout
true.
out.
Next year he'll be an Oriole. Cool.
Right. Once he opts out, he'll be here. Don't worry.
And Manny Machado will be here because he's going to opt out. I think he's got an opt out. So the Orioles are going to be really good next year. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I heard we're also trading for the entire Dodgers lineup.
Yep. I think that's right. That's right. We have an inside source. The other voice in our head, I think.
Right.
But yeah, so a little AL Central flavor here. I think the Orioles they're gonna crush it this week. We're gonna show that we're really good, and it's just because the AL East is really good. Why we struggle. That's it.
There have been talks, and by talks I mean people tweeting and hoping it happens, but that Adley could come up and make his debut on the first day that Bobby Witt is in town, and that would be kind of fun.
That would be. I've seen other theories that he's going to spend a week at each of the levels. So he just did a week in Aberdeen. Next week he'll be a week in Bowie, then a week in Norfolk, and then he'll be up. Which is like, God, why so long? But I get it.
Because that'll get him past Super 2 status, and then he gets a year less of arbitration.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about the money, baby. But then if he wins AL Rookie of the Year anyway, he's gonna. What, Jesse?
I was just wondering if you were gonna go. I was just wondering if you were gonna go to his debut when he does make an appearance.
It depends on when it is. I might
fly up.
It depends. Yeah, I mean, I got a couple weddings to go to this month. But if it's on like a Friday or something, I might be able to go. We'll see. It's up in the air.
We should have a Warehouse Pod reunion if it's on a weekend.
Yeah.
Go make it happen. I'll fly up. No questions asked.
Okay. Let's think about it. We'll see what happens, and we'll do it. I would love to see Adley Rutschman play a baseball game. All right, cool.
Yeah, be cool.
All right, yeah. So next week we'll recap this AL Central tour we've got going on. Maybe Adley Rutschman comes up. Maybe Grayson Rodriguez comes up. Don't hold your breath, but Kyle Bradish will definitely make another start. So we'll talk about that. Yeah, I think that sounds good. All right. Well,
actually, I'm just seeing that the next 4 series that we have, we play the NL Central Cardinals, and then we play the AL Central Tigers. So it's 4 in a row against the Central Division teams.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like breaking up the AL East stuff we always have to do, so that's nice. But yeah, all right. I didn't say it at the top of the show, but please subscribe is what I meant to say. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify and anywhere else. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Warehouse Pod. You can also email the show, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. And you can follow me at _Ty Young on Twitter. Do you guys want to plug anything or just stick with that?
Yeah, what the heck? I'm on Twitter at Elijah Ginsburg.
Nice. And oh, there he is.
Twitter and Instagram at Juggernaut8678.
Very good. All right, well, we'll get out of here.
Jesse's delay went away for like 20 minutes in the middle of the show, and it's been back with a vengeance ever since.
It's okay. I listen to all kinds of podcasts. There's all kinds of delays. Look, we're doing a show from 3 different states. The technology is amazing. Sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. It's okay.
Yeah. All right, let's get out of here.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Warehouse Podcast. Until next time, I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
Thanks for listening.